One more podcast before WrestleMania 41, because why not? We don't have a siren. We are here in Las Vegas, but we do have feelings. Welcome to a Notsam Wrestling emergency podcast coming off of the final Smackdown, the final WWE television show, the go home before WrestleMania 41, and there's a lot to talk about, especially as it concerns the two main events for WrestleMania. Now look, I came in and said, after that promo that Seth Rollins cut at the beginning of Smackdown, I think I'm going to need to get in here and talk to you guys one more time before we get to WrestleMania. But what I didn't expect necessarily was what happened at the end of the show. Now I knew, of course, we're going to get the final confrontation between Cody Rhodes and John Cena. But I didn't necessarily expect it to go exactly the way it went. So look, we'll talk about Seth in a moment. We're going to talk about both these things on this emergency podcast. We can't keep it to one topic because we got a limited time. WrestleMania is already here. So let's go to John Cena and Cody Rhodes, right? And here's what surprised me. First of all, they changed it up. Cody Rhodes comes out first. Now this is the first time that we've had the John Cena Cody Rhodes confrontation since the Monday Night Raws that they did in Europe. All three of those shows, it was Cody Rhodes and John Cena face to face. First one is basically John Cena just kind of describing who he was as a heel. A little bit talking about why he did what he did, but more in the broader sense, right? More talking about what his relationship with the fans is now, as opposed to here's exactly why in that moment I did that. The second promo, he also wasn't really talking about Cody Rhodes. The second face-to-face was when he talked about Cody Rhodes. When he talked about Cody Rhodes stealing his playbook, when he talked about Cody Rhodes not being the right guy, when he talked about wanting to ruin professional wrestling. And then that third confrontation is where Cody Rhodes clapped back. And he did great. I loved all three of those confrontations. But I do think it was necessary, or maybe not necessary, but beneficial to have one more face-to-face before we get to WrestleMania. Now, this is one of those super matches, right? This is one of those iconic person versus person matches where the story is important now. But when you talk about it, to me, you talk about it like Hogan Warrior. Yeah, there was a story going into that, but ultimately, it's Hogan Warrior. Hogan Rock. Yeah, there was a story going into that, but ultimately, it's Hogan Rock. You've got Cody Cena. Even Cena Rock. Cena Rock, you're like, yeah, there was a year-long story going into that, but ultimately, it's Cena Rock. I think we've got that with Cena and Cody. So John Cena doesn't come out first this time. This time, Cody Rhodes comes out first, which is different from any of the other three times. And this time, instead of Cody interrupting John the way he did in their third back and forth, John comes out and says, "Stop right there, kid," or whatever. He says, he calls him kid, and he speaks first. And John Cena basically sets up his thesis, explains his motivation going into WrestleMania, explains who it is that Cody is going to be wrestling. And he talks about the fact that nobody's ever retired like this, meaning nobody's had that year in front of them. Nobody's had that, I'm announcing I'm retiring at the end of the year, and now I got to get done everything I've ever wanted to get done. He talks about, how people don't believe in wrestling retirements, because that has been a topic. We even talked about it a little bit on Busted Open that I did a couple days ago, earlier this week, where nobody believes in wrestling retirements, and many have said that because John Cena is now a heel, because he's a bad guy, that how do we know he's not lying? How do we know that he's telling the truth? Since he's a heel, couldn't he just keep wrestling after the year? Which, logically, sure. But when John Cena made the announcement that he was going to stop wrestling at the end of the year, he was a babyface. I mean, I guess you could go back on it, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think that would make this whole sort of story, make this whole thing a lot less historical and a lot like, yeah, he said he was going to do a year, but he really did a year and a half. I don't see that happening at all. So John Cena says, Cody is facing a man who knows he's going to die. And there's nothing more dangerous than a man who knows he's going to die. John Cena's going into WrestleMania knowing this is his last WrestleMania. That means he's got nothing left to lose. It's interesting because he was talking about how every wrestler needs these people, right? That's why they come back. That's why these retirements aren't real, because they need the people. But John Cena doesn't. John Cena doesn't need all this adulation. He doesn't need to listen to the people or follow what the people want him to do, because he's got love, joy, and worth. And as he's saying this, I go, okay, so what really makes John Cena a heel is that he's got himself in a healthy mental space. That's like he doesn't need the adulation. I think we want to root for people who kind of want us to root for them back. We as fans, I think, want to feel needed. And I think that when you've got somebody like John Cena who's saying I don't care one way or the other. You're not filling a hole. Every performer talks about needing to fill that hole. Comedians talk about it. They go up on stage because they want to make people laugh because it fills some kind of void that is inside them. And John Cena has seemingly removed the void he once had, I would imagine, through therapy. And now he doesn't need the fans anymore. And it's like, well, good for you, John. I'm glad you're healthy, but where does that leave me? And so he's talking about all this, right? And I think it's great. And then he drops a couple of quotes. And I love paying attention to these quotes, because I don't know if you guys watch White Lotus, but that's the first example I thought of, because I just finished the 3rd season. And in White Lotus, things that characters say come true. A character could say something at the beginning of the season, and at the end of the season, something will happen, and when that thing happens, you go, oh, it's because of what they said before. They're basically telling us what's going to happen through this dialogue. And I think that happens in the WWE now. I think that that's kind of the way these things work. Even Seth Rollins last year saying, Cody, I'm going to be your shield. And he took that in a very literal way and became his shield, and it's exactly what Cody Rhodes needed. John Cena said 2 things. The first thing he said that I wrote down, even though we don't do notes, because this is feelings. This is all feelings. He said, you will lose. So whenever a wrestler tells his opponent, you are going to lose, my ears perk up, because it's like, is this a wrestler being confident, or is this a wrestler setting up exactly what's going to happen? And he says, you will lose because you care about them. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but the first thing I thought of was those words are going to come true. That Cody is going to be reacting to the audience. Maybe he goes to use a foreign object, but whatever he does, whether it's them booing him or whatever it is, he's going to turn and go, maybe I shouldn't. And just when he hesitates because of the audience's reaction, John Cena is going to be able to take advantage of him and beat him. Something like that. And that scenario to me is so fascinating, because not only does it pay off what John Cena said, but it's also one of those scenarios that down the road could be a root cause in one day Cody Rhodes being a villain instead of a hero. Something I'm not advocating for anytime soon, although I'm not advocating for it anytime soon. But it is something that's there. And what's rule number 3? Everything counts. Then he says, do what they think is right or win. When he's talking about, he said, I didn't know if I could beat you when I won the Elimination Chamber. But when The Rock offered you the chance to win, and instead you said no because you did what they think is right, I knew you were done. And so that's an interesting thing, because it really is the first time that John Cena has made any reference to the turn itself, to why that happened in that moment. But he didn't make it seem like he sold his soul to The Rock. He didn't make it seem like he and The Rock had a deal going in, which I guess he didn't not say that either. So that is still something to visit either down the road or could be this weekend. But he said that the realization kicked in. And I don't know if he was pretending to need the audience before and never actually needed them, but he said that that was the weakness that he perceived in Cody, and that's why he did what he did. Now, I'm still anxious to see The Rock getting back involved in this, so we know, because it hasn't ever really been explained if or why John Cena specifically sold his soul to The Rock. But then something happened that I didn't expect at all. Something happened that even people have emailed into the pod and said, do you think we could get a Rock Hogan scenario at WrestleMania? I think just on Monday, I went on a whole rant going, no, nobody's going to boo Cody. And I don't know if it's because you guys heard that podcast and wanted to just prove me wrong. I don't know what made tonight the night, but they booed Cody in Las Vegas. 2 days before the match with Cena, they booed Cody Rhodes. And it was almost this contagious thing. And I couldn't tell if it was like they were booing him because they really didn't like it, or they were booing him because they were feeling rowdy. You know, I mean, it's like in Las Vegas time, it's like 7:30. Everybody's getting ready to go out to dinner after this, or go to the Hall of Fame, or go to whatever it is. And I don't know, something clicks in, and maybe it has nothing to do with time zone. That just popped into my head. This is feelings after all. But something happened and they started booing Cody Rhodes to the point where John Cena had to acknowledge it. John Cena said, these are the people that you're fighting for? And it made me go, oh boy, what if that is contagious? The same way what the crowds did in the UK was contagious, the same way what the crowds did across Europe was contagious, where now you tune in and you hear Roman Reigns, or Cody Rhodes in an arena full of people that have never watched a soccer game in their life. They heard that on Netflix and they thought it was a fun thing to chant. What if the people in the arena go to the stadium, and then the people who are in the stadium that weren't in the arena are watching Smackdown, and they go, oh, that's kind of fun and unexpected. That's a monkey wrench into the whole thing. I could boo the good guy, which you know from the beginning of this podcast. I mean, anybody that's been listening to this podcast for years and years and years knows. The first thing that I preached was boo the bad guys. It was like, let's not go out there and try to disrupt stories that we don't even really feel like need to be disrupted. Unless, as a fan, you're like, no, I like this better than I like that. Then I got no problem. But they booed Cody. And I went, oh boy. Because I started wondering, it's not dissimilar to what happened with Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton, where the fans booing can throw performers completely off their game and can change the course of the entire story that's being told. And I watched Cody, and he was trying to make this point. He had a line to fire off, and it was actually a great line. He said, John, you talk about the fact that you've never buried talent. Well, there's a whole graveyard that would disagree with you. And I thought that was a great line, but the fans were already into their boo thing and decided not to acknowledge it. John Cena goes, these are the people? Boo, boo, boo. And that's when Cody went for it. Cody fired up. Cody started going, and Cody started slanging insults at John Cena. Talked about his appearance. Talked about the fact that he's lost so much muscle. The dropping paler than Sting at Starrcade 97, which is not only a reference to Sting, which people love, because Sting doesn't even work at WWE, which is not only a reference to Starrcade, which people love, because that's not even WWE pay-per-view, but a reference to the fact that on Conrad's podcast with Eric Bischoff at one point said that one of the reasons why Sting could not beat Hogan clean at Starrcade 97 was because he came in so pale. It wasn't about the face paint. But maybe it was about the face paint, right? Depending on what level you wanted to appreciate that line on. But when Cody went into that thing where he got fired up and it felt like he was talking from the heart, and then started getting vicious, trying to insult John Cena, trying to hit him back, lost his manners. People got back on Cody's side. Cody won them back quickly. To me, that's what makes Cody great at this. That even as a white meat babyface, the babyface of all babyfaces, he can figure out, it's very difficult to get the crowd to cheer for you, to get an arena full of people to go, would you mind all supporting me? It's easier to get hate than it is to get support, especially when you're in the ring with John Cena, who, if you walk around these streets, if you walk down the Vegas Strip and you talk to people, and I've been talking to people, they go, I got to see bad guy John Cena at WrestleMania. I got to see what John Cena's going to do as a bad guy at WrestleMania. There's something exciting about that. And if you let that feeling of excitement just be what guides you, all of a sudden you're cheering for somebody that nobody was cheering for up until now. But maybe there's something about the reality of this match coming in. Maybe there's something about the reality that we're going to see John Cena in a WrestleMania main event, that we're going to see John Cena in a championship match, that we're going to see a bad guy John Cena wrestle good guy Cody Rhodes in the main event of WrestleMania. There's something that's so exciting about that we just have to emote. I don't know what it is. I'd love to hear what you guys think it is. But I think it's really, really intriguing. Then, of course, Cody almost he gets the cheap shot, attitude adjustment, slips out of it, another crossroads. For the second time, John Cena is left laying. Which I don't know. I mean, is he going to be able to do that 3 times? There's a lot up in the air right now when it comes to WrestleMania. There's a lot of different directions this could go in. We don't even know if The Rock is going to be at WrestleMania or not. We don't know who's going to be. This could be a straight-ahead thing. Some people are looking for a happy ending to end WrestleMania. Other people are predicting Empire Strikes Back. In my heart, I want Cody to win. I kind of wonder if people will resent it if Cody wins, but I want Cody to win. I don't want Cody to be one of these baby faces that have to lose big matches more than they win. I feel like Cody has had 3 WrestleMania main events, technically, if you count both nights, right? WrestleMania 39 was his first main event. Lost to Roman Reigns. WrestleMania 40 Night 1 gets pinned by The Rock. WrestleMania 40 Night 2 finally has his crowning moment. So now you're 2-1 when it comes to losing. And to lose again at WrestleMania to John Cena, it's almost like, and I get it, there's money in the chase. I get it. We're moving forward with John Cena. John Cena's not threatening to retire as champion after WrestleMania. He's saying he's retiring at the end of the year, but he's not going to give the title back to anyone. He's going to beat everyone after he's champion. I think that as much as there's a story to tell with Cody Rhodes having to rebuild and Cody Rhodes having to chase John Cena, and look, there could be interference. Like, again, John Cena saying you do what they think is right or you win. Could mean that there's a garbage finish, meaning like an unfair finish, whether it's The Rock interfering, whether it's Randy Orton interfering. What if, and who's to say what's going to happen with Randy Orton? He's going to have an open challenge match. He's going to be there on Sunday, though. It's going to happen on Sunday. Maybe Randy Orton comes out and helps John Cena. Maybe Jacob Fatu comes out and helps John Cena. Who's to say? But John Cena can win in a dirty way now, and he's set it up so that, yeah, I told you. I don't care what you guys think. I'm going to win the title. I'm going to set the record, and then I'm going home. John Cena as champion sets up a thing now where everybody is trying to get that title back from John Cena. Now, at the same time, Cody Rhodes beats John Cena, and now John Cena is even more of a heel. Now John Cena is hell-bent on destroying Cody Rhodes. Maybe The Rock has to recruit more people. I don't know. If I'm thinking with my heart, I want Cody Rhodes to win at WrestleMania. If I'm thinking with my head, it feels like an Empire Strikes Back night may be ahead of us on Sunday. And I am so interested to find out what the audience does. Now, we also got that Seth Rollins promo to open the show. Seth Rollins sitting down in the CM Punk position. Roman Reigns not on the show. CM Punk not on the show. Seth Rollins there to explain his story. And in this triple threat rivalry that has been so dominated by Roman Reigns and CM Punk in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, Seth Rollins has completely taken command of the narrative, which is one of the most difficult things to do when you're dealing with Paul Heyman, when you're dealing with Roman Reigns, when you're dealing with CM Punk, to be able to take that narrative and control it and hold it to yourself. Seth Rollins did it, and he cemented it by sitting in the middle of the ring tonight. He set up this thing that you kind of have to agree with, of CM Punk returning to the ring, but he didn't return in this organization. He took the check. And why did he return to this organization? Because the other organization didn't want to pay him anymore. He took the big, fat check. He's using CM Punk's own words to come back and haunt him. He said it, and it's so funny because when he said it in that first promo, it came across as weird. And remember, we were talking about it. Why did he say that at the end of the promo? I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. Well, now we reap what we sow. All of it is coming to fruition because rule number 3, everything counts. He said Punk is a liar. He's a fraud. He's a coward. He said he basically doesn't care about the WWE. And then he said, Roman Reigns, forget about it. Roman Reigns makes it clear he doesn't care. And I wouldn't be surprised because Roman Reigns is out doing interviews. He did like Vanity Fair, and he's talking about the fact that he may only have a couple years left as an active wrestler. And then he's going to move on. I think Seth Rollins, I wouldn't be surprised if that somehow comes up heading into WrestleMania or even after WrestleMania. I think the most interesting thing that Seth Rollins did was he said that Paul Heyman brought the Shield to WWE. That the original narrative, and this was like up until a week ago, was that CM Punk brought the Shield in. And that contributes to the history of Seth Rollins and CM Punk. But now, he said it was Paul Heyman that brought the Shield in to protect CM Punk. In an instant, Seth Rollins just established history between himself and Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman has history with CM Punk. CM Punk, the original Paul Heyman guy. They go back to OVW. Paul Heyman was CM Punk's only advocate for a long time in WWE. Move forward to Roman Reigns. They have history. Paul Heyman it's not just a storyline. He has been tight with the Samoans. Going back to the Samoan SWAT team in WCW, there's a history there. And now Seth Rollins has set up a history with himself and Paul Heyman. He talks about Roman Reigns being the chosen one, and always, the Shield was there, but Roman Reigns was the guy, even though Seth Rollins was there, week in, week out, doing everything. He brought up WrestleMania 40. He said he was the Shield that caused Roman to lose the WWE Championship. Seth Rollins, and this is going back to quotes, both of those segments I felt had important quotes. Seth Rollins said, I will sacrifice everything for this business. That sounds to me like Seth Rollins is on the brink of another villainous heel run. And he is he's planting the foundation of that. Meaning, what he does next, he'll be doing for us. He'll be doing for the business, whether we appreciate it or not. And I think that is kind of a brilliant play on who Seth Rollins is and who he has been this entire time. And then, of course, he ends the promo by saying that's not a prediction, it's a spoiler. When we're wildly speculating, there's a lot at play here, right? He used the phrase best for business on Monday. And there were people who attributed that to The Rock, who has said best for business. But for me, when he said best for business, I went back to his original heel turn. I thought that was him basically saying, I'm going to do what I did when I joined the Authority. Triple H said best for business. That was the Triple H thing in the Authority. Seth Rollins being on the side of Triple H and Stephanie and being that heel was best for business. So that's how I took that. It wasn't necessarily based on what The Rock said, but now The Rock is kind of more in that Triple H role where he's that kind of heelish authority power person. But Seth Rollins saying he will sacrifice everything for this business. There are some that think that Seth Rollins is going to associate himself with The Rock. Now, I'm not sure that The Rock is going to get involved in both main events. I guess it depends on what the vision is going forward, right? If the idea is that the next place to go is Rock and Cody, then I don't think The Rock gets involved here. I think he sticks to whatever's going on with John Cena and Cody Rhodes. But if they're like, look, maybe we only have one match left with The Rock, we want it to be Rock and Roman, then it would make more sense that The Rock got in there and got Seth Rollins on his side. I could see it, but I feel like there are still loose ends with the Cena-Cody thing. I feel like this is going to be a more Paul Heyman-centric story. I truly feel. Like, there is no way on the 10th anniversary of the greatest heist in history, that was WrestleMania 31, now we're at 41, that Seth Rollins doesn't win this triple threat match. I think with every fiber of my being, that's the guy who wins this triple threat match. I think that that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler, gets paid off. I think the idea that Paul Heyman now, Seth Rollins saying, you owe me a favor, Paul Heyman never said, yeah, I do. He was more explaining that favors are choices. So Paul Heyman has a choice to make. Paul Heyman doesn't actually owe Seth Rollins a favor, but now it's in the air that instead of just choosing between CM Punk and Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman could be choosing Seth Rollins. I thought it was ridiculous at the beginning of this story, and I said it on the podcast. Today, I feel like there's a good chance that we get Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman together. Either Paul Heyman's going to become a full-fledged babyface, because otherwise, what is it that... I think Seth Rollins is a heel, and Paul Heyman joining him sets up amazing stuff. The idea of... We've already seen Seth Rollins as the babyface trying to stop Roman Reigns. We're not done with the Roman Reigns-Seth Rollins rivalry. So what if that rivalry revolves around Seth Rollins being a heel, who's got Paul Heyman, that Roman Reigns has to work up towards? There's no evidence of Roman Reigns winning big matches without Paul Heyman. And if Paul Heyman isn't with him at WrestleMania and he chooses Seth's side, and Seth ends up winning, that's even more. You can't win without Paul Heyman. And maybe that's something that Roman Reigns has to learn. Maybe that's something that Roman Reigns has to rebuild. And at the same time, we never really got finality on the CM Punk Seth Rollins rivalry. And if Seth Rollins becomes... To me, Seth Rollins' heel run, right around that heist of the century Seth Rollins, is probably my favorite Seth Rollins. And I really feel like we could be on the verge of seeing it again. I can't wait to see it. These are just my feelings right now as we're coming off of Smackdown. I wanted to hit you again before WrestleMania. It is going to be an amazing weekend. I'm sure we will talk about it. There will be WrestleMania recap podcasts after each night of WrestleMania. Now that we've got the Las Vegas Notsam studio set up, I would not be surprised if I come on here and share my feelings with you after each night of WrestleMania. I will be here. I hope you will too. Don't forget to subscribe, audio platforms, YouTube. Do the deal. We'll talk again soon.